I had thought that I had paid relatively good attention to this, but Anne, I think you really schooled me on this one. So, well, I think this discussion has shown that there's a lot of permutations and questions we can ask, and for the sake of time, I think we're going to kind of have to move on from there. So I guess this is one of our ones where we didn't come to as well-defined of an answer as maybe we would have liked with these, not just in terms of quality, but on some other things. We may revisit this movie at some other time if, say, they ever do a dual release again. I don't know if they're ever going to try that one again, Anne. What do you think?
I don't know, but I'd be happy to. This is a movie I feel I get more out of every time I watch the pair of them, just because, oh gosh, there's so much going on. There's so much happening. So yeah, no, it would definitely be worth the revisit later, and maybe by that point our opinions would have changed a bit.
Well, we'll see if they ever get this adventurous again. But there is other music in this movie we should talk about. There is a use of the opening theme from, I guess, each side. On the Japanese side, they have an extended or movie version or whatever of Best Wishes. That's what it's titled. I think, Rika Matsumoto, another one of those from her?
Yes, it is. Oh.
And then on the English side, we have Black and White with Aaron Bowman and Joe Phillips. Let's start on the Japanese side again. What do you think about this version of Best Wishes? To be honest, that overall song has kind of faded from memory for me. I'm sure if I heard it, I would recognize it, but maybe, I don't know, Anne. What do you think about all of that, what I just said there? Well,
I agree with you, because Best Wishes is one of those where when I stop listening to it, I forget how it starts. And I'm never sure if that's a strength or a weakness, but like that first verse, like there's something about it that's just a little less catchy, a little less memorable. And then as the song goes on and the chorus hits, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember the song. And then suddenly the second verse is like, yeah, I love this. And again, it could be a bit of personal taste, but it's definitely a song that, like, it just gets more fun. And it's definitely Rika Matsumoto being like all of her best Satoshi singing skills on display. But yeah, it's one that is really easy to like suddenly fade into the background and you forget that you like this song. So I definitely see what you're thinking. And of course, if you just never liked the song, I imagine it's probably not one of your best loved for that reason. It takes you a while to get onto the bandwagon and then stay on the bandwagon. As for the movie itself, I listened to them side by side. I listened to them one from white mix to black mix. I'm not sure there actually was a different mix between all three. They all sound the same. So it could be that it is the same song in the TV series, just extended. It could be that there might be some slight mixing going on between black and white, but I didn't notice any key differences. And I don't see any, other than Best Wishes movie edit, I don't see any credit differences between the three. So I imagine they're all the same song.
Well, after we talk about the English one, I guess we could maybe decide whether that was a missed opportunity or anything, but time for me to fess up, I kind of forgot to re-listen to that off the Japanese soundtrack album before this discussion, so I'm really blanking on what Best Wishes sounds like here, so kind of unfortunately. But if we go to the English side, there is Black and White, and as I mentioned before, it's performed by Aaron Bowman, who we talked about a lot during the last couple episodes, most notably the Zoroark movie where she does the end theme there. And Joe Phillips, who unfortunately I tried to do a little digging on Google to figure out who this person is. We're not 100% sure because there's one L in the credits in Phillips, but I also found a 2L Phillips musician. So unfortunately, we're not entirely sure who precisely this is. But because of the way things are released on the English side, the TV version was relatively short, and then this version is extended. Now, I do recall when I first heard this on the chorus, they changed things up a little bit in terms of order because they extended that part too, because I think it's like in the TV version, it says, it's not always black and white, which is totally the wrong tones there, but oh well.
It's beautiful.
But in the movie version, you do get that, but first you get, it's not always right or wrong as long as your spirit's strong. So that kind of threw me in there, but I think I've gotten used to knowing that's going to happen in the movie version. And did you have any thoughts on this one?
I don't have a ton of thoughts. I do like the song a lot. It's not one of my favorite English openings, but I do quite like it. Because I own the movie not in English, it's not an opportunity that I have often to watch that opening credit sequence and hear the song and really give a lot of analysis to. So I don't have that same like disconnect that you seem to have between the series and the movie and like the little changes they might have made. But yeah, I definitely think it works and it plays and it fits. But I don't have many thoughts beyond that. Sorry.
Yeah, I do think it definitely works for that opening sequence where they're battling in different places around the town. That is one of my favorite opening sequences in some of the later movies as far as what's actually content-wise in there, because there was sort of a coherent narrative going through it and whatnot, and we get to see what happens with all three of the main characters. So that's actually a very nice scene, I would say. And the music, at least on the English side, from what I remember, works fairly well there. But we had mentioned earlier that, they, unlike the ending themes or the opening themes, there don't really appear to be any like musical differences on either side. Do you think that was maybe a missed opportunity, or what do you think they should have or could have done there?
I am honestly not sure, because I feel like to not even have different mixes is such a bizarre miss that it almost has to be a deliberate choice, because that's just such obvious low-hanging fruit. So I'm not sure. And for my part, like, definitely on Best Wishes, but also on Black and White, like, Best Wishes is just so perfectly timed to what's happening, like, visually, like, musically, like, the sound, like every beat syncs up. Like I could talk for a straight hour on that opening scene and how the music works with it if we really wanted to. So I almost wonder if like they decided not to have, say, that same problem that you noticed with Sora and Koi, where the two songs are slightly different lengths or, maybe hit their peaks in slightly different places. I think maybe it's entirely possible that for that scene, they're like, let's just keep everything the same and make it perfect. And maybe the English side decided to follow suit. I don't know, really. But I almost feel it has to be deliberate, just because otherwise, why wouldn't you do two different, at least mixes, if not full compositions, because you did for everything else?
I suppose so. I mean, I'm not musically talented enough to have any idea where you would go with that. But I did want to throw that out there because I think that's kind of an interesting thing. Now, you did mention that you did allude to that some of the background music or background score is different. That is the case, although there is a fair amount of overlap. If you bought the score for this movie, it comes on 2 CDs, and there are some tracks that differ between the two versions of the movie. Now, unfortunately...
some tracks? Friend, there are 2 different composers who composed entirely different scores.
I guess I didn't notice. I think this is... Some folks out there have complained that the score is too low in the English dub once TPCI takes over, and maybe that's part of the reason I didn't notice that. But I do have the 2 album set. But
yeah.
So who were those 2 composers, Anne?
Okay, so by all accounts that I could dig up, which were a little limited, it was kind of an interview with Toho Nation and a lot of IMDb, but White was given to Kazuhito Sawaguchi, and it seems that Black was given to Akifumi Tada. They've both done a lot of anime music and some stuff for Pokemon as well, and this is the first Pokemon movie not to be scored by the same person who scored all the previous movies. He gave it off to the 2 of them and let them go nuts. And the difference is White by Sawaguchi, is a lot more sedate, and there's a lot more flute music, when they're doing the history book pop-up scenes, whereas Akifumi Tada almost has a more traditional Pokemon style of composing. It's a lot more bombastic. There's a lot more bold instruments, and it's a lot louder. So it's very interesting to watch key scenes of the movie, like where Ash is kind of dying of hypothermia or something. Like, those are very different musical choices. Again, the history book pop-up scene. I think there are some tracks that are similar, like, World of Pokemon and the like, that are just always the same in the opening theme. But, there is a different theme for Reshiram. There's a different theme for Zekrom. And on the whole, each one composed their own score, and it's kind of fun to look through and see where they vary very differently than the others.
I guess I'll have to pay. I knew there were at least some tracks that had different versions. I didn't realize that they were that different, but maybe after seeing the Pokemon the movie White in theaters, I didn't pay quite as much attention to the other version of it when listening or watching it through. So
yeah,
I suppose that's...
Sorry, I was just going to say, because I don't own it in English, I've not had the opportunity as often to get to watch it in English. I've often wondered if they kept that the same, if they did use the two separate scores for the two separate movies. I can't imagine that they wouldn't.
At least in places, I assume they did, but I'd have to double check there.
Yeah, like that would be something to find out if anyone knows, because I've been very curious about that. I've not heard a lot of chatter about it, so sometimes I wondered if maybe they didn't, and that's why there's not as much commentary on two separate scores.
A good question for you folks at home out there. Mm-hmm. Any particular score cues you wanted to call out here?
I really love that. Who is it? The mayor guy who's at the very start of the battle competition. He's got the Pokemon that hook up into his organ, and the music starts playing. I really like both of those organ themes. They're very different, but I like them both. It's kind of a similar situation that we have with the ending themes, where it's like, I feel like I really love the one until I listen to the other, and I feel like I need them both to get a full picture of this movie. But I love the flute themes and the very kind of, not Celtic, but very like pastoral and period piece that goes on in the Reshiram side during a lot of the flashbacks and the history portions, and the kind of more sedate, quiet, and almost no score at some points when like Ash is nearly dying and all that. But then again, I also really love like the very powerful music that happens when Reshiram and Zekrom are battling that Tada has during the black version. So yeah, there's a lot of differences. There's so much going on.
Okay, well, I think that covers pretty much all the musical aspects. I guess I had thought that I had paid relatively good attention to this, but Anne, I think you really schooled me on this one. So
that would be a first. I usually feel you come into this with like amazing memory to recall obscure musical pieces from a movie, and I'm having to catch up, so it would be a first.
As far as our next episode in this series, of course, that's going to be the Keldeo movie, or Kirim versus the Sword of Justice, I believe is the English name of movie 15. And the matchup there, on the Japanese side, we have Rolla with Memories. And on the English side, we have Jess Turner performing It's All Inside of You. I had an opportunity to interview Jess a ways back, so we're going to have some information there. I'll have to check and see what she's been up to since. But, while the Keldeo movie might not be one of the most loved movies, I still think we can have a very good discussion about the music there, and look forward to seeing that. In the meantime, Anne, thank you so much for being on.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And this has been Stephen Reich with Anne from Pikapi Podcast discussing the music of the Victini movie. All right, folks, thanks.
Thank you.